Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Hope you're doing well and everything's going good. So, today I've got a band that I guess it's a hair metal band, right? They had the hair, they wore the makeup, but the music is really damn good. And we're gonna go through all the records and talk about them individually. And they only had the 7 albums out. I should mention we are not including the EP in this. We're just strictly going to do the full length studio records. And so to help me in ranking them, I'm going to bring my two partners in crime in here. We got Mr. Martin Popoff and Mr. Pete Pardo. How are you, gentlemen, today?
Doing fine. Looking forward to this.
Cool, cool. Same question as always. Ratt, when did you guys first hear Ratt? When was your first exposure to the band? I'll start. We'll go Martin and then Pete.
Well, I definitely remember, I'm not sure where I got it, but I definitely got the EP right away, the indie version of the EP. I remember getting it right around the same time I got the Great White EP that's got the same songs on both sides, right? So it was these two bands, an exciting new kind of genre, the passing of the baton from the new wave of British heavy metal over to California. Dawkins was already going, Crew was already going, but loved the Ratt EP. I mean, it basically seemed like a super exciting, really good band, doing things that new wave of British heavy metal bands didn't do, and you're liking it. But it is the start of the whole hair metal thing. You had the Quiet Riot Mental Health album at the same time. This Ground Zero 1983, it was like this band is going places kind of thing.
Yeah, that EP is very, very raw sounding too. It kind of reminds me of the first Motley Crue, that it's like just a really raw recording. It's got a lot of energy in it. What about yourself, Pete?
I don't remember hearing the EP. I just remember seeing Round and Round on MTV.
Yeah.
And the album basically was out right around the same time, and just everybody had it and everybody was listening to it. But and they were playing that on the radio, and before you know it, like 3 of their songs were on the radio like over the next couple of months. So for me, it was definitely the video that got me first.
Yeah, that song Round and Round was like one of the staples, right? Of that, the whole, the hair metal thing coming on, the LA scene coming on. It was that and Looks Like Kill, Motley Crue. You were hearing that all the freaking time, right? In that, that would have been 84, right? Around that time, 84. All right, let me say hello to a few people that are in here, and then we'll get going. We got Kim is in here. Kim can't wait for the show. That's awesome. We got Steve Auger, Pete Brown, welcome. Tyler Patterson, there's Mitch Heyman, nice to see you. Captain Beyond, Edwin Crane, John the Dark Wizard, welcome. Just making sure I catch everybody here. Tyler Patterson, welcome. Louis Begin Dumay, I hope I'm saying your name right. Welcome. All right, cool. All right, so let's get into this. So I mentioned at the top of the show, we're only going to be doing the 7 studio records. We're not going to include the EP in this. I mean, Back for More appeared on the first record anyway. So, and if you've listened to both versions, they're quite different, actually. I'm so used to the out of the cellar version that when I listening to the EP version kind of throws me a little bit, So let's start with, I guess we'll go Martin and then we'll go Pete. So what have you got for your number 7, Martin?
All right. So this really surprised me coming up with this list, and it was very frustrating and kind of hard to do, but I've definitely surprised myself in 2 ways with it. And I think this one's not particularly surprising. I started with Detonator in the number 7 slot. By the way, I've always kind of thought of Collage as a Ratt album. I know we're not including it, and I looked it up and read a little more about it, but I really like this album. And to me, it does stand together like a proper Ratt album, but it is a bit of a compilation sort of thing. So obviously it's not in there, but yeah, Detonator, August 21st, 1990, produced by Desmond Child. Desmond Child's in on all the songwriting. And frankly, my lower end choices, I mean, I have a hard time even remembering all of these songs. They're all so uniform and Ratt-like, right? I mean, the production is kind of the same across all of them. The speeds are kind of the same. Yeah. They do all the same sort of tricks. So, this is, it's got big stadium rock production, but it's still got a little bit of edge on it. Shame, the first track is very memorable in a Ratt first track kind of way, and one of these big anthems that you feel is a hit. But Lovin' You's a dirty job. I really hate that crappy funk metal thing they do when they're doing kind of the stripper metal thing and sounding like Motley Crue sort of thing. There's a lot of cowbell on this album as well. Heads I Win, Tails You lose is like Motley Crue like party metal. All or Nothing, kind of crappy White Man Blues, Poison kind of thing, and don't like that as well. Top Secret I thought was pretty cool on it. There's a power ballad on here which is pretty good. One thing I gotta say for this band, they've always reminded me of Aerosmith in that they always deliver high quality, but it's almost like so high that you get spoiled that you start complaining about it. I don't know what it is, but 3 of their albums in a row, I can barely tell apart what should be on what albums. And I'll even include a 4th in there. They don't have a lot of personality across these albums that are different from each other. But this one, I'm going to put at the bottom because I just want to penalize Desmond Child for being involved with the band. So there you go.
Yeah, there's definitely a formula that they like to stick with, and yeah, it carries over from album to album. All right, Pete, what do you got for number 7?
Well, more on Detonator in a couple minutes, but I'm going to go number 7 from 1999, the Ratt album. Some people call it 99.
Ratt 99. Yeah.
Their first album in 9 years. You can kind of tell when you listen to it. It's kind of a weird album. It comes at a weird time, right? Hair metal is kind of basically done by the late 90s. You got new metal and all sorts of other things are more popular at the time, but it's kind of like a bluesy album. There's some good guitar playing on the album, as always with these guys, but I find most of the songs are just not really memorable, quite forgettable. And, when your favorite song on the album is a song like Dead Reckoning, which isn't a great Ratt song by any means, but to me, it's the only one that's got much of a pulse. It's got to sit at the bottom for me. So, Ratt, 1999. Not much of a fan.
All right, I can tell right now our lists are all going to be radically different. All right, well, here's my my bottom of the barrel. Reach for the Sky. Man, to me they just sounded tired on this record. They have they got the 2 What I Want a Woman and Way Cool Jr., and then the rest of it is just not very memorable at all. The record actually sounds great, but the songs just are not. Yeah, it's lacking all the hooky riffs and the melodies of the other records. It's just, I guess at this point, they were rich and famous, and they weren't really. Oh, damn, we got to go make another album kind of thing. It just feels like they were just mailing it in. Despite that, though, the record, I did make a note here that it did actually hit platinum. But I'm sure that was based on the momentum of the previous records. And this was the last of the Bow Hill productions. But yeah, they just seem to be phoning it in here. It's like, here's a couple of decent songs, and then here's a bunch of filler. And it just didn't do it for me. Reach for the Sky, and that was 1988. So there you go. Nice. All right, what do we got for number 6?
Well, I'm also going Reach for the Sky, and I agree with everything you're saying, tired, but it's almost like, again, it's frustrating because I have this high regard for Ratt that I think they're good songwriters. Nobody makes music like they do, quite like they do. It's kind of like this really sort of powerful sounding, slow moving, sluggish hair metal that has this sort of like heroic sort of stadium sound on it, but it's still very relaxed in a weird way. So yeah, I can feel the drag, like you say, the tiredness. Again, the formula, start off with City to City, which is a really impressive sounding, catchy Ratt song. I really like the, when they break formula. And even though I want to Love You Tonight is sort of a power ballad, I think it's kind of cool. And that again proves to me that they're kind of like Aerosmith, where they're really talented. Again, it's got some of like the B grade funky stuff on it, like No Surprise, typical heavy Ratt. What's it going to be? Bottom line, I like when they get a little melodic, a little glammy with it. They once in a while, they remind me a little bit of the New York Dolls, and I really like to hear a little bit of that out of them as well. But yeah, I'm feeling the same kind of thing where it's just like, sounds exactly like Detonator. It sounds exactly like Dancing Undercover, right? It basically sounds exactly like Invasion of Your Privacy. They've got this formula. It is a pretty cool formula, but there's just kind of like nothing new. So yeah, I can feel the phoning it in thing, but I still feel they're talented. Very frustrating. Yeah, and it is a Beau Hale and Mike Stone. And I noticed in my I'm all over the Wikipedia pages. From my collector's guide to heavy metal, I guess I gave it a 7, and it still feels like a 7. And I noticed I gave Detonator a 7 in Wikipedia as well, and I still feel it's a 7.
Cool. All right, what's your number 6, Pete?
All right, I'm going to go with Detonator from 1990. I mean, I agree with everything Martin said. I think for me, after like the first 2 albums, you could probably take all the best of the next 3 albums, and that makes a pretty damn good album. But like, all in all, they're pretty spot. It's kind of more like this kind of lighter pop metal fare on this album. But there's some good songs. I really like Shame, Shame, Shame. I like Scratch That Itch a lot. Loving You Is a Dirty Job is kind of ridiculous, but I think it's really hooky. I kind of like it. So there's some good songs on here. I tell you though, I don't find on this album, or really any of them, I really don't find Stephen Pearcy a very good singer. And I think that my issue with Ratt has always been, I tolerate him on the first 2 albums because those are so good. And then I get kind of, his voice kind of grates on me after a while. And I find on some of the later albums, it really kind of rings true for me. So I find like some of these albums hit or miss based on how much I'm accepting of his vocals. And I also don't like him singing the mellower stuff. I think he's much better on the faster pace, maybe the heavier stuff. But, again, there's a handful of really good tracks on here. The rest is kind of filler. So I think Martin giving it a 7 out of 10 might even be stretching a little bit. I would probably give this like maybe a 5 or a 6. But, again, some good songs.
Nice.
All righty. So my number 6, Infestation. 2010. The record, they're supposed to be their comeback record. They got Carlos Cavazo in the band now, which I will mention. Carlos Cavazo, his soloing on this record is amazing. Like, he crushes it. Absolutely great playing.
Good player.
Yeah. Carlos Cavazo. The only other band, he was Quiet Riot right after Randy Rhoads. Definitely a throwback to the 80s sound. They basically were trying to redo, getting back to the formula of what they were putting out in their first couple records. But the songs are they're not at the same level. They're not at the same quality. It is a pretty heavy record, I find. There's some decent tracks on here, though. I don't want to like totally slag the whole album. Eat Me Up Alive, I thought was good. Best of Me as a pretty good tune. Lost Weekend, Garden of Eden, pretty good tunes. Very heavy, but it just sounds like they're just recycling the stuff they've done in the past, and there's just like I mean, it's one of those records nothing sticks with you. You're not gonna. There's no earworms in it, but sonically, it's a heavy record. It's a kick-ass record, but just the hooks are missing, and some of the catchiness of their other catalog just isn't in this record for me. But Carlos Cavazo crushes it. So there you go. There's my number 6. Alrighty, we're down to 5.
All right, my number 5, I went with Ratt from 1999. There's my 2 different versions of it with 2 different back covers as well. I think one of these is French. But I quite appreciate, first of all, it's produced by Richie Zito, which is usually a disaster, but it actually doesn't sound like a Richie Zito production, so that's good. I'm not happy about the fact that it's got like Marty Fredrickson, Jack Russell, Richie Zito, Jack Blades, Taylor Rhodes, who's written for Aerosmith. All these outside songwriters are attached like a tick to each songwriting credit sort of thing. And I don't want to see that. I think these guys are good songwriters. That's one of the cool things about Ratt. I mean, Steven, for all we can complain about his vocals, he's a very prolific and good songwriter. That's the kind of cool thing about him, right? But I do like that this album does step out of character. It is like Pete says, it's kind of bluesy, but it's also kind of grungy, and it's a little acoustic, and it's a little Zeppelin-esque, right? Live for Today is this mellow psychedelic Zeppelin sort of one. Over the Edges, a bit brooding and Zeppelin-esque. Even Gave Up. Sorry, no, not that one. Given Up has got that sort of cashmere, sort of Zeppy feel to it. Good heavy one on it in Breakout. Got to tell you though, almost Ratt's best song of all time. I just love this song. I just noticed it again. But the very last song on this album, So Good, So Fine, is so cool and heavy. It reminds me of almost like a little bit Soundgarden, Jesus Christ Pose. It's really, really cool. Or is it Rusty Cage? One of those. It's really creative and awesome. Only 11 songs on the whole thing. But yeah, it's got some acoustic, some grungy things. Lovesick is typical sort of Ratt party metal. Dead Reckoning is completely typical. It's funny Pete mentioned that he likes that one because it's got some life to it. And my note says typical Ratt. So I know what Pete wants out of Ratt. And my point at this point is I'm so frustrated by getting so much typical Ratt. I like that this album steps out a little bit. So that's my number 5, Ratt.
Cool. All right. What do you got for number 5, Pete?
I'm going to go with Infestation from 2010. I like that this album is pretty heavy. I like the addition of Carlos Cavazo. I think he and Warren make a really good team here. And there's some really enjoyable tracks on here. Like I really like Best of Me. Love the riffs and the solos on Eat Me Up. Look Out Below is really good. And how about that song Garden of Eden? Really cool track.
Yeah.
What's missing on this album for me, though, is those Ratt hooks. I think even the songs that I do like, I don't really like them for the hooks. I think I like them for the guitar playing and overall kind of feel of the songs, but I'm missing like all those vocal hooks and harmonies and the backing vocals and whatnot. But overall, I think this could have been a much stronger album had they had a little bit more of that. But I think it is a pretty good comeback album for them. And unfortunately, that's kind of the last we heard from them. So, whatever. Pretty good. If you've never heard Infestation, I urge people to give it a listen because I think there's some pretty good stuff on there.
Yeah, the guitar work, like I was saying, is really good. But yeah, it's missing the hooks. It's nothing to really grab you there. But it's a good record, good heavy record. Alrighty. So for my number 5. I'm going with Detonator 1990. Opens with Shame, Shame, Shame. That is a killer track. That for me is what I look for in Ratt. Just a perfect example. You get the catchy riff and the hooky chorus. That's Ratt to me. You guys beat up on Loving You is a Dirty Job. I know. I always thought that song was pretty entertaining.
I'm the man to do it.
I'm the man to do it.
The music stops right up.
It's so hokey, but I dig it. The radio friendly One Step Away is a really good song, I thought. There's some cool deep tracks on here too. Hard Time I like. The rest of it is okay. It's a decent album, but it's not great. It's just okay. Like there's again, you get like Pete, you were saying, they could take like their last back catalog and make one really good album because again, you've got a few songs here that are really, are cool, but then the rest of it is just kind of falls a little flat. So I wouldn't say this is a great album. I'd say it's an okay album, but yeah, that's all I really take away from Detonator 1990. So there you go. Alrighty. What do we got for, I think we're at number 4 now.
Yeah, number 4, I've got Dancing Undercover, August 9th, 86. It went platinum as well. I look at the Wikipedia. Some smart guy who wrote Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal gave it an 8 out of 10. So I don't know. Do I still think it's an 8? Probably not. I almost feel like I should have switched Ratt around with this one because I feel like this one's just another big coagulated pile of really good Ratt songs all together, but I can't tell them apart from the other albums. But Yeah, so I like Drive Me Crazy a lot. It's got kind of these big heroic sort of chords. It sounds cool. It's got a fast chugging one that reminds me of Quiet Ride and Body Talk. Enough is Enough at the end of the album is kind of melodic but cool. But yeah, I can't picture many of these songs in my head. And I hated that album cover. I'm actually missing some of these Ratt albums. I've traded them off to friends and stuff, but
There it is.
Slip of the Lip, again, slow and funky. Yeah, just whatever, right? That would have fit on the show we just did, the black and white album cover. But yeah, I'm just not hugely impressed. I mean, here we are at the third album, and it just sounds like more of the second album. But great production as usual. Beau Hill does an amazing job with the production. But in isolation, it's almost like too much of a good thing. It's frustrating talking about these albums, but there you go, right in the middle of the pack, Dancing Undercover.
All right, what do you got for number 4, Pete?
Martin, you and I did a show a couple of years ago about certain bands where if you have the greatest hits, that's probably all you really need. Right. Would you say Ratt potentially is one of those bands?
Yeah, it feels like that. It definitely does, right?
Yeah.
Because we love the hits so much, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny. You could have someone steal all those hits away and replace them with 10 other songs that sound exactly the same, and we probably like that as much too, right? But it's just we don't need 2 and 3 of every one of them, right?
Yeah. True. Yeah. All right, my number 4, also Dancing Undercover from '86. I think here music's taken on a little bit more of a glam funk type of edge, which is okay. There's some fun stuff on here. I think Slip of the Lip is a great song. I really like Dance a lot. I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. Yeah, maybe not one of the best ones on there. Body Talk is tremendous.
Body Talk's killer.
Is really good. The rest of it, it doesn't matter, is okay. Enough is Enough is okay. Again, there's a handful of really good tracks on here, and the other half is kind of like, okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So not a terrible album, not a great album, terrible album cover for sure, but it's my number 4.
Okay, so this one was already mentioned, but my number 4 is Ratt, or the Ratt 1999, whatever you want to call it. Over the Edge, killer opening song. Radio friendly, Live for Today is great. And another fantastic song, We Don't Belong, love it. You mentioned that maybe outside writers coming in change things a little bit. I mean, this record to me, it seems it's like they're invigorated. Maybe that's the outside or maybe outside influences or whatever. But to me that it seems that they're back to just writing really, really cool hook-filled songs. And there's a nice variety of material on here. I like that they expanded the palette on here. So, we've been talking about, everything kind of sounds the same. Well, this album doesn't. This album actually sounds a little bit different, and it's refreshing, and different in a good way. So Good, So Fine, another killer track. What else did I write here? Just make sure I'm not missing. Yeah, I mean, I think this album should have done better than it did. I like that they expanded their sound and they brought in some different flavors, via different writers or whatever. I didn't realize there were that many people involved with this, because to me it sounds like a fresh take on Ratt, and for that reason, this album, of the ones obviously this is number 4, but I think from this point on I kind of dig all the records. So this was sort of the first of the better ones for me, starting at number 4 upwards. So there you go.
I think it was always going to be a tough sell in 1999.
Yeah, they were told very out of favor at that point, right? Yeah. Along with everybody else, from that period. Yeah. All right, number 3, Martin.
Okay, so this one's been bumped down by something that you may notice has been missing from my list so far, but I'm going with Invasion of Your Privacy. So the second album, so this is when they got, even more big and corporate and professional, but You're in Love is just a killer track. Really cool, big hit with the video and the whole bit. Never Use Love is also really cool, big thumping track. Lay It Down, I've always loved that big heavy beat to it. I mean, these guys are just a really classy, heavy band, writing basically the most sophisticated songs of all the early hair metal bands. Yeah, Give It All, melodic, pretty cool. Closer to My Heart. I really, again, the almost like the clue that this is a skillful band is when they decide to do any sort of ballad whatsoever. It's really interesting and there's cool parts and they
Yeah.
put heavy stuff into it, and it's got some darkness to it, some depth. Between the Eyes, not crazy, kind of another stripper pole metal sort of song. What You Give Is What You Get, atmospheric, languish sort of thing. Yeah, Got Me on the Line starts with the telephone, right? A mid-paced. Again, sound kind of debut era on that one. Yeah, You Should Know By Now. Cool. Good guitar solo intro to it. Interesting keys, chord changes, that kind of stuff. Dangerous, but worth the risk. Again, pretty cool song. So it's essentially good, solid stuff. It sounds like, to me, this sounds like the band becoming, like I say, corporate, super professional, just cleaning up everything from the debut and just becoming like a force to be reckoned with sort of thing, right? And yeah, what did double platinum did really well out there in the marketplace. Yeah, just a really good album. Number 3, Invasion of Your Privacy.
One thing with Ratt and going through these records that I've always really dug the guitar tone that they have, and the guitar tone is pretty similar from record to record. But I love the sound of the guitars on this band. They always sound really, really cool. And I've been talking about Carlos Cavazo. We can't forget Warren DeMartini, and oh man, I'm blanking. The one passed away.
Robin Crosby.
Yes, Robin Crosby. Yes. Yeah. Just that pairing was always cool, and he wrote a lot of the stuff with Steven. Speaking of writing songs earlier,
they all wrote a lot except for Bobby Blotzer, the drummer. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Too.
All right, number 3, Pete. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to go with Reach for the Sky from '88. Last of the Bow Hill Productions. It's hard for me to not include the top 4 in my top 4. And even though this, again, is another spotty album, I mean, heck, you hit the nail on the head. I love the guitar tone on this album and the 3 that came before it.
Yeah.
I love Way Cool Jr. I think that's a way cool song. Totally love it. I love City to City. I love I Want a Woman. Chain Reaction is good. What I'm After is another good one. Again, there's some other stuff on here that is kind of mediocre, but the songs that are good are really good. I love those two guys as a guitar team. I think they always work really, really well together.
Yeah.
It's a good sounding album. Maybe not as successful start to finish as some of the other ones, but I think the songs that I like on here, I really like a lot. And at least the cover is somewhat interesting looking as well. So that's my number 3.
Alrighty, so my number 3, and this has already been talked about. Dancing Undercover 1986. These guys always have, not always, but most of the records always have a nice strong opener, and this one opens with Dance, and I love that song. Dance is great. Yep. This is also the home you mentioned, Body Talk. Body Talk is one of my favorite tunes of theirs. It just
great song.
Up tempo, fast. The riffs are cool. It's hooky. It's everything you want in Ratt. I dig Slip of the Lip. I think that's pretty cool. And then it's got some really great deep tracks on this. Looking for Love is a great song. I love Enough is Enough. This is just a really, for me anyway, we're talking about spotty records. This one for me is of the ones we've talked about so far. I think this is the most consistent throughout. There's just enough good material on this that this is a solid album. This is one I would recommend to somebody. Like, get this record, you'll dig it. There's enough good stuff on here. It's pretty consistent. It's a solid album. I have no qualms with that. Came out in '86, so they were basically kind of right there, at their peak. Alrighty, what do we got for number 2?
Well, so this one surprised me having it this high. Infestation. I love Infestation. Produced by Michael Elvis Basket. Great sounding production. I like the idea that Steven, you can hear his voice is degraded. It's a little rougher. It's a little Dave Mustaine. You still don't want to see Ratt live. I mean, that's one thing people said about Ratt, right? They said they were not very good live. and like the whole band was not very good live, but Stephen Pearcy really had a hard time because he did not take care of himself, and he obviously didn't have good technique with his voice. And I've seen them later on, and I've seen him croaking away, sort of thing. It's a shame, really, but I think he could still always make good records, and he had Arcade and he had all that solo stuff. He's a really talented guy. So we shouldn't really put him down just because of his voice, sort of thing, because he's a great writer. But yeah, I think this is a heavy album. I love Eat Me Alive, super heavy, fast. Best of Me, melodic. It reminds me a little bit of Hanoi Rock. So they've got a little bit of that punk rockness to them, that New York Dolls that I mentioned earlier. And I just feel like they got a real spring in their step. They feel like they got something to prove. And they came out and they also proved that they're a super talented band. Again, that whole thing with the ballad thing, right? Look Out Below, where he really sounds like Dave Mustaine on that. It's funky, but it's got a lot of changes in it. Last Call, Shoot 'em Up, Fast One, Lost Weekend, Grinding. As Good as It Gets, a little laid back, slow, melodic, not one of my favorite. Garden of Eden is really really cool, fast, killer guitar. Stop Start, in it as well. Lots of it's very different, kind of proggy for them. Take a Big Bite, heavy and punky. And then my notes for the last 3 all have the word odd in them, which is really cool. I want to hear that from Ratt, right? Take Me Home, odd ballad, Don't Let Me Go, or Don't Let Go, fast, odd, scatter, odd, cool chords, poppy ballad, awesome. So yeah, I just really think they did a great job on this. Carlos Cavazo, credit to him, Robbie Crane as well, and then Michael Elvis Basket, who has a big part in it as well. So I'm just super pleased. We were talking off air about how we're not crazy about the new Extreme. A lot of bands can turn in a not crazy, not good album, but this was a pleasant surprise. And Pete, you and I always talk about Mr. Big and Europe being those bands that rise to the challenge and make great music now. It's just a shame we only got one of these out of Ratt, alone, outlier, Reformation album. But yeah, Infestation number 2, 2010.
Interesting. All righty. Okay. What do we got for number 2, Pete?
And I will say before I divulge my number 2 is Ratt are on the short list of some of the worst bands I've ever seen live. Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
And when was that?
87.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, they were terrible. Yeah, they were not good at all. I don't know if it was a bad night or they were hammered or I don't know what, but yeah, they were sloppy and just all over the place. And yeah, it was not good. But I'm sure they've had plenty of great live gigs, but not the one I attended. So anyway, my number 2 is Invasion of Your Privacy.
Yep.
Man, I had this on cassette when this first came out. I played this to death. I will say it's got my favorite Ratt song of all time and probably the coolest guitar riff on any one of these albums, which is Lay It Down. I mean, I love the guitar tones on this album. I love the solos. I think Warren is just so badass. And Robin too on here, and just these songs just have balls, and there's hooks, and it's just so many great songs on here. You're in Love is great. Between the Eyes, Got Me on the Line, Dangerous but Worth the Risk. Awesome stuff. Really, really good album. That if it wasn't for my number 1, this would easily be my number 1. And always like the kind of the cover too as well. Does anybody remember who the lady was on this cover? I don't remember. She was someone, but I don't remember.
Not Tawny Katane, I thought.
No, she's on out of the Cellar. But this person was also kind of famous, but I don't remember who it was. I don't know.
Christy Brinkley?
I don't know.
I thought maybe I heard that story.
I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments knows, but I don't remember. But she was.
I've got my cheat sheet open here. I've got my wiki hanging around. Let me just see it. Oh yeah, here we go. Cover model is Playboy model Marianne Gravatt.
Playboy model. Okay.
Also in the Lay It Down music video.
There you go.
There we go. Cool.
All right. Well, I said this list was going to be all different between the 3 of us, but we finally got one. Because I also have this as my number 2. Yeah, I mean, 1985. I mean, these guys were firing on all cylinders. You're in Love. That opener is just, again, everything I love about Ratt right there. This record is top to bottom, just really, really really, really cool. Like the worst song on this record is as good as any song on most of the records, you know. Yeah. I mean, there's too many highlights to go through on this, but I'll go to the deeper tracks that I really dig. You mentioned Dangerous but Worth the Risk is crazy good. Between the Eyes is great. Give It All is another very, very cool song. Yeah, like I mean, they were on fire at this point, you know, just writing really good, catchy rock, heavy rock, great guitar playing, great hooks, great melodies. They were all over the radio. They were all over MTV in Canada. That would be Much Music, and man, it was just these guys just had a really big presence. And yeah, fantastic record, absolutely fantastic. I got nothing bad to say about Invasion of Privacy, and I listened to the listen to that thing like crazy back in the day. That's a great record. There you go. Alrighty. I think I know what most people's number ones are going to be because I haven't seen that record yet.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Martin, what's your number one?
Number one is Out of the Cellar, February 17th, 84, triple platinum. I gave it a 9 on Wikipedia and deserves a 9, maybe even higher. The EP had 7 tracks, and I guess it had 2 on that made the album. You're in Trouble and Back for More. But I just feel like, this album is probably so good because they did have that fairly long past and the guys had been around and they're talented and that San Diego to LA thing and Mickey Ratt and all that kind of stuff. So I think they had a lot of good material and it all showed up here, all sorts of different sorts of songs. Again, I'll never forget hearing Paris is Burning. I think it was Paris is Burning, or no, the other one of the more melodic ones off of Dawkins, Breaking the Chains, and thinking, how can this LA stuff that's coming out after the new wave of British heavy metal, it's a little complicated. That actually came out 81 and then came out later, but how can this music be better than new wave of British heavy metal music? And Ratt is the total proof of that. Heavier guitar sounds, great production, sturdy songs, melody in the right places, and just really, really smart riffs. Wanted Man is amazing. You're in Trouble's cool. Round and Round is just so sophisticated and well put together. That riff is just so catchy. And I remember this too, the early days of MTV, just seeing that all the time. In Your Direction is cool too. She Wants Money, fast and punky. So they've got that cool fire in the belly vibe there. Lack of Communication is a little bit like You're in Love. It's got that just really cool, more marauding sort of feel, that big thumping 4/4. That's the thing with Bobby. He's got such a heavy pocket that he gets in with these songs. And it's just the drum beats are just the rhythm section is so good. Back for More is amazing. The whole thing. I'm Insane. You got another fast one in here. Scene of the Crime, again, sophisticated, weird chords. I mean, it's just like banger after banger after banger. It's just so well put together. And they just put everybody to shame at this point, right? Just so much better than Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, Dawkins, basically everybody. They're just like the almost like the intellectual, if you will, but they're not. I mean, it's intellectual on the music end. It's the sophisticatedness of the music, the guitar, the production. They're clearly, the cream of the crop of the early days hair metal bands. So there you go.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I mean, I'm in that period. Like I'm a Motley Crue fan as well, but these guys were just at another level in terms of sophistication, the songwriting, the guitar playing. I mean, mind you, it's 2 guitars versus 1, but still, the melodies and the chords and these guys were just like they were on fire, literally. All right, what do you got for number 1, Pete?
Can only be Out of the Cellar. I mean, Martin hit the nail on the head. There's a sophistication on this album, which other than a good chunk of the next album, I don't think they really ever kind of did ever again. This album is serious. It's lean. It's mean. The production is great. There is a almost like a technicality of all the guitar parts, the soloing, the riffs, that really is kind of light years above a lot of what everybody else doing, and even what they would go and do afterwards. Like I said, you get it a little bit on the second album, but there's something about this first album. I mean, you couldn't escape this album when this came out. They were all over the radio. They were all over MTV. I mean, look at how many of these songs were played in one or both of the mediums. You know, Wanted Man, You're in Trouble, Round and Round, Lack of Communication, Back for More. I mean, those songs were everywhere. You couldn't escape this. And you can still listen with the great Tony Katane cover, by the way. You can still listen to this today and hear how groundbreaking it still is all these years later. And I think both of you said it perfectly. Out of all these bands that kind of did this sort of thing, they kind of stood out head and shoulders. I think Dokken was right there as well. But there was something about what these guys were doing on the first two albums that was just way more sophisticated and, dare I say, intelligent than a lot of the other bands that were out at the time. So, yeah, it can only be this one for number one.
Nice.
I don't know if this has ever happened, or maybe it hasn't happened in a long time, but we actually all agree on the same number one.
Yeah. Very rare.
Yeah, very rare. I mean, I don't know what to add. They had years, like every band, right? They've got many years to write the first record, and it should be their best, right? And it is, man. The debut it's killer. Wanted Man opening, killer opening, Round and Round on the radio all the time. Just the absolute, like, again, a very sophisticated, very cool riff. She Wants Money for a deeper track is cool. The Morning After, oh man, what a great song that is. I'm Insane. Lack of Communication, that sort of offbeat, onbeat thing that I love, man. It's just so cool, consistent all the way through. It sounds fantastic. You put it on today, it sounds just as good as it did back in '84 when it came out. It has not aged one bit. It is still a solid, straight up rock record. The guitar interplay, and it's so well recorded because you can hear everything that's going on. There's nothing, it's not colluded and messy. It's all very clean. Everybody has their space. It's just, it's a killer album. I mean, what can you say? I know how many times platinum did this one go? Does anybody know? 3 times. There you go. Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. The system worked, right? I mean, they had a great logo, great name. They looked good, but the system worked because it's almost like the system worked for Metallica, almost in more of a pure sense. I mean, Metallica was really, really talented. But it's still pretty extreme, and they're not exactly the most photogenic guys in the world. But Ratt had everything going, but the system really worked for them too. It's because you couldn't deny how talented they were.
I think they also they latched on to the Van Halen and the Aerosmith crowd. It's almost like their music is kind of like a mashup of the two, right? You had all the guitar heroics and the raunch and the look of like Aerosmith, mixed with a little bit of what Motley Crue were doing as well at the same time.
I mean, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned this, the whole hair metal thing. Like, some people take that as a derogatory term. Some people take that as just a way to sort of describe the LA scene. But I mean, what these guys were doing, regardless of what they were wearing or what they look like, as we talked about, is just at such a high level and so well done that, a lot of what, like the first generation of hair metal bands, which would be like Ratt, say Motley Crue, Quiet Riot, Dokken. I'm not real familiar with Dokken. They didn't get a lot of exposure up in Canada. But, that first generation of bands, man, they're putting out some really, really good, strong material, really, really good songs. I can't say that for the second generation when you start getting into the Poisons and the Warrants and all that, and the LA Guns. But that first generation, man, they were putting out some really good rock records. And,
the first Great White record is really good too, really solid, almost to these Ratt levels. Not quite, and also the second Dokken record, Tooth and Nail, but the production's not very good. It's lacking bottom end kind of thing, but it's unfair to slag them because of the whether they're wearing mascara or not, they're playing damn good music. So all right, so let's go around the bend here. Martin, anything you want to mention? Anything coming up on your website, book-wise? Not particularly. I mean, just keep checking out our YouTube channel, The Contrarian, stuff going up all the time. I'm on Pete's show every Friday. I've got an audio podcast, History in 5 Songs, and martinpopoff.com for all the books. The latest ones are The Cure, got the big AC/DC coffee table book, the David Bowie coffee table book, and the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon coffee table book in a slipcover. So all that's martinpopoff.com.
Cool. And Pete, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Friday morning, Martin and I get together to do Friday morning at the Funhouse. So, and that's just a music talk show for an hour each and every Friday on a different topic. So we'll be doing that this Friday morning. I've got I do a show every other Saturday with two guys from Sea of Tranquility from the UK. It's called the UK Connection. So this Saturday we're going to be talking about our least favorite Ozzy Osbourne solo records. We've got Ranking the Album show on Sunday, and also coming up in, I don't know, a few weeks. We just kind of agreed to it today. Martin and I will be getting together with Phil Aston from Now Spinning Magazine. He's got a YouTube channel as well. He's collaborated with both of us separately. The three of us are going to do a show together in the not too distant future, kind of talking about the Deep Purple family tree, and specifically kind of comparing and talking about Deep Purple, Rainbow, Whitesnake, and Gillan. So those four bands specifically. So that's coming up in the weeks to come. We'll
In the
announce more.
future.
Yeah,
All
in
right.
the future. So yeah,
Cool.
lots going on as always.
Cool. So I just want to mention, folks, I got a new piece of music out. It's called Bare Bones, and Pete, it's you and two other guys got that joke, by the way. Song is called Bare Bones. It's on my it's right on my my YouTube page. Go and check that out. I did a review of the new Extreme record that is also out. Pete did one earlier, so if you want to check out Pete's and check out mine, we we do not agree on most of it, but check them out and give them some love.
Have you heard this yet? Have you heard the new Rival Sons yet?
No, I have not.
Oh, that you need to listen to.
I gotta listen to Rival Sons.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Good.
If you want to help support the channel, there's links below. Pete today is sporting a fantastic Guitar Hack shirt. Appreciate wearing that today, Pete. There's links below, shirts like that. There's hats, there's hoodies, there's mugs, there's all that kind of good stuff. There's a PayPal down there below. That would be much appreciated. If you don't follow me on my Facebook page or on my Instagram, all those links are below. I want to thank everybody for watching. We got 50 people watching right now. Yeah, everybody have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you. Oh, actually, in 2 weeks, it's going to be we're doing Max Webster in 2 weeks. So if you're not familiar with Max Webster, boy, we got a show for you. That's a band that should not be missed. So check out the Max Webster show in about 2 weeks' time. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good rest of your week. Cheers.